Show and Teller. As I like to start off every single one of my episodes, succinctly, I usually give such an incredible, very short, not long-winded introduction. So today I'm going to do it just the same way that I always do it. I have a very special guest who's on Show and Teller today. And as always, how we'd like to do it here is we'd like to bring in people who have an incredible story, somebody who's pushing the envelope, somebody who is got a lot of grit, a lot of adversity, somebody who is we can learn from. And what better way to bring in a good friend of mine who I happen to see multiple times throughout my week. We are in the same Torah study class together. He is also responsible, he and his family have hosted hundreds of young professional Jews at his house for a Friday night dinner. And people have told me that it's the best Shabbos dinner in all of Pico Robertson. Some might include Beverlywood in that area. And I thought, you know what, this is a guy who's got a lot to say. And some of it might be funny, some of it might be sad.
True.
Some might, we'll see how it all works out. Am I sticking to the script so far? Maybe not. But without further ado, I would like to introduce our guest today, who's a great friend of mine. He's a mentor, and he's a leader in our community, and I think his story will woo the entire population who's watching this. So without further ado, Jeff Astrof.
I honestly didn't know you were talking about me. I did not pay like when you talked about like role model and mentor. Actually, you didn't say role model. I'll include that. Where's my camera? That one. Sorry. Yes. Thank you, Rabbi Teller. What an honor and privilege to be here on Show and Teller. It is every showrunner's dream is to wind up here. I just did a panel for Variety with some other showrunners, Greg Daniels, who did The Office, and some other. There were 4 other people there, and we talked about highlights of careers, and every single one of them was being on Show and Teller, and now I get to rub it in their face. So
my day has come.
Oh, I'm sorry. That was Emmys. Sorry, that was winning an Emmy. But this is the Emmys of Jewish podcasts.
I appreciate that.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. Hearing that, as we'd say, a skaba, that flag that has come from you. I feel.
That's why I'm here.
We're going somewhere.
That's why I'm here.
So Jeff, I usually like starting the show. I'm a linear thinker, so I wanna say, okay, you are a writer, a showrunner, a producer. Thank God you have a show on NBC currently right now.
Called Stumble, yes. It's on Friday nights. I don't expect any of you to watch it, but it's also on Peacock afterwards. I expect all of you to watch it.
Amazing. Thank you for that. And so you being a showrunner, a director, producer.
Not a director.
Not a director. Okay.
It's different. Different guild.
You direct things in life, though.
Very few things a director in TV. I mean, I'm in charge of this. When I have a show, it's a $50 million production basically, and I have hundreds of people working.
They put you responsible for $50 million.
Oh yeah,
to spend that. And
you think this wardrobe was just free? Yes. No. As a showrunner, when I say me, I run the show with my sister too, so I want to give her credit. But typically, when you run a show, yes. When you run a show, yes, we have a budget for the year about $50 million at any given time. I have between 300 and 500 or 600 people working for me, all of whom are waiting right now for me to get back. I said I'm in the bathroom, so we have 45 minutes.
Love it.
Yes.
Well, we'll try to keep this succinctly, and
it's fine.
So you can get back to your responsibilities.
They're used to the wait.
So Jeff, before we get to talk more about your current projects of Stumble and other things like that, where are you from? How did you start on this path in life?
Are you talking about the TV path? Are you talking about religious path, or?
I'm talking about we're talking about you are a religious man.
Yes, I'm a Torah observant Jew.
Torah observant Jew. What is that? It's just a case of our.
It means I believe that I was created by God, and I have a relationship with God through the Torah that was given at Mount Sinai and all the halachas that go with it. I dedicate a good part of my day to learning every day. I starting with you with learning. I didn't say learning, but sitting. I'm auditing something called Daf Yomi, which is going through the Talmud.
A page of Talmud every day.
Yes, and in addition to that, I learned about an hour a day, different sources and different halachas, and I keep Shabbos and holidays and kosher and raise my kids that way. And it's I did not grow up that way, but it's a great way of life.
Question. So, were you raised this way, or did you grow up? Where
No.
did you grow up in?
I grew up
environment.
I grew up in, look, I have to, I grew up in a home that was not as connected. We were very culturally Jewish. I knew I was Jewish because I would get beat up for it, and, had, was called Christ Killer, and had swastikas put on my locker. So that's how you know. And plus I look like this. So, I grew up in a town with very few Jews. I always stand out just because I was
Such a strikingly good looking.
It was not that. It was not that. Not back then. Even with my pompadour and my '80s afro. No, just look, Jews stand out. We're different. We're meant to be different. But I always knew Jewish and culturally Jewish, and I had bar mitzvah, and I had. I had the rabbi played her guitar at my bar mitzvah, so it was, that's what you did back then. And, but it was very important that my, parents took me to temple on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah and the occasional Friday night service.
So you would identify as a Jew?
Oh, I identified as a Jew, 100%. But we didn't, our family tradition at Friday nights was to go to the Delta Diner. I had cheeseburger deluxe. So that was our family tradition. We never missed it, though. It's important. Traditions are important. But, my grandfather, who came from Russia, was observant. And it's very funny because my father, I guess a lot of people in that generation, I guess he came over and he left Russia in 1917. He walked from Russia to Paris. I want to say he walked from there to America, but I don't think he did. But he was 12 years old, and he was in charge of the family basically, and learned English, and got them passports in French, and I don't know. He definitely didn't learn English from watching TV like a lot of people do, because there wasn't TV then. But he took care of his family, and then came to America, and he kept Shabbat, and
This was your father's father?
My father's father. My mother's parents were in America for a while, and my grandmother on my father's side, whom I was very close to, was also in America for a while. So he was religious. My grandmother kept kosher in the house. There's a famous thing when I decided to start to become religious. My father said, stay away from the Orthodox. They're a cult. And I said,
and he said this even though his father was an Orthodox Jew.
Well, I said, Dad, your parents were religious. And he said, no, they weren't. I said, your dad went to an Orthodox shul. He said, because that was the only one he could walk to. And I said, but your mother lit candles. He said, only Friday nights and holidays. So, but my father's inhibition for this, and it's really true, is like a lot of times there's a lot of confusion, I think, in what, and it's also like I can't, he grew up from the son of a Russian immigrant, and who you may know something about. Like, it's not like a particularly warm culture. My grandfather loved me, but like, I know it's like I think the weather comes from them. I don't think they're. I mean, that's why it's so cold there, and so I don't think his father was a lovely man. I remember, his father loved me as like the firstborn boy. I was like,
the Bechor.
Yes, the golden child, and for Gentile audiences, gold for the Jewish audience. So, but I remember going to their houses for Passover. So he died when I was young. He died I was 8, I guess, 7. And, but I remember going there, and I remember guys with long beards, and like at the Passover table, the Seder, going, with the Maxwell House Agada, and he'd go all night, and he would like give me little pieces of herring under the table and stuff. And I remember that like very, very warmly. And I remember where the Africana was hid every single time. And, but I don't think like today we teach our kids that it's about God's love, and if God loves you, and you have a relationship based on love, and I'm not sure that was the environment he grew up in. And again, you can't judge that generation. He walked to Paris, and I wanted to ride from the curb up to your office here, so I don't have that kind of grit. You said grit before, but so I think that for also what he saw in his father's generation and his generation is that if you had a job and you were Sabbath observant, that means, it's like if you don't come in Saturday, don't bother coming in Sunday. And that generation, I mean, we lost a lot of Jews in America because of that, because you worked 7 days a week and you had to decide.
Right?
And this, yes.
Their religion was American.
Yeah.
Culture.
And for the first time also, we don't know persecution. I mean, I got into fights and stuff. I didn't know real, thank God, persecution. And even, now what's going on. We don't know that type of you be kidnapped by the government. My grandfather left Russia because, they would conscript especially Jewish boys, and you'd be in the army for 35 years. That would be it. You'd be completely assimilated, and that was it. So, but, I give my dad credit, certainly, because I'm here today and, watching my grandmother light candles and sometimes when my wife lights candles, she feels my grandmother's presence there, which is very, very nice.
We always say that there's like a Bubby and Zadie, or a grandma and
Yes.
grandpa who's up in heaven who's praying on our behalf. And it seems to me that, if we'll get to more down the road towards your story, hearing your path, but sounds to me like they played a very big part in your...
For sure. I think our friends are good friends with Rabbi Youngrice, whose mother was Rebbetzin Youngrice, who used to say that, if you wonder why you're a Baal Tshuva was somebody who, skipped a generation, it's because your grandmother prayed for you in the candles. And so...
There you go.
But, yeah, you don't know.
Skip that, you go to university where?
I went to University of Pennsylvania. I went to Wharton, and I was...
You were in business school.
I was in business school, yes, a finance major.
That seems a lot different than being in Hollywood. So
it's, boy, I guess I look at there were two guys who were lived in the building next to me, and we used to make fun of them endlessly for being nerds, and they're both now billionaires with a B, and here I am doing show and teller on a Wednesday morning, not missing anything. Nothing is going on. Nothing is different in the world because I'm here right now, and these two guys. So, guys, stay in finance, stay in school, don't follow your dreams, follow the money. If you get nothing else out of this. And
You heard it first.
Guys, this is the takeaway.
$1 billion advice coming from Jeff Astrof.
No, look, thank God I was not good. I heard from a Rabbi Orlek once that if you wanted to know what you should be doing, it's what God made you good at. And I am very good at my job, and everything that's not my job, I'm not very good at. I know I have my wheelhouse.
that's why you have your wife.
Yes, thank God for my wife. And I wasn't even good at picking wives. I had my friends tell me that to marry her. And except for one good friend who said, no, she's too good for you. And he was definitely right. But that's my wife's journey. I don't know why she has to live this hell on earth and being my wife, but she does. And that's something she'll deal with. That's why we believe in reincarnation. She did something terrible and she was sentenced to this. And anyway, no, so... yeah, I think I always had a relationship with God. I tell the story that I was, after college, I did this Funniest Man on Wall Street competition. And I always joke, it's like Jewish high jumper. It's not like a ton of competition, but I won it, and it was at the Boston Comedy Club, and the prize was...
Wait, so you did stand-up comedy?
I did stand-up comedy. I did stand-up comedy in college.
You think you're funny?
I think I'm funny. I mean, it's the small audience, but I think here, one-on-one, I think I'm coming off okay.
You're doing all right.
I'm doing all right. I mean, I'm not gonna go rabbi to rabbi with you, but I'll go joke to joke. Maybe not across the table there. Okay. But yes, no, I know that's what I'm good at. I've always been a funny guy. You kind of have to. If you get beat up a lot, you have to be a fighter or funny, and I am not a fighter.
So you were doing you did this stand-up.
I did a stand-up comedy, and the prize was that you got to go on something called the Ha Network. And it was the Ha Network was a predecessor of Comedy Central. And I've told the story a lot, and except the only thing was I had to appear on Yom Kippur. And on the night of Yom Kippur, Kol Nidre. And
For those who don't know, it'd be like, for those baseball fans, it would be like Sandy Koufax, who's like the best pitcher, going and playing baseball on Yom Kippur. And
Right.
you are this incredible stand-up comic, and you're bread and butter.
there's such a difference between me and Sandy Koufax in that every Jew in America has heard the Sandy Koufax story. Being on the Ha Network for winning Funniest Man on Wall Street is several levels below. I was not a big. You want to elevate me? I was not a big stand-up comic. If I were a big stand-up comic, I would have been a stand-up comic. But this was important to me, and because I wanted to. Who doesn't want to be on TV? I mean, look why I'm here. Tens, dozens, maybe. People enjoying me. But like that was, for me, that was like the big thing is like you did a comic set and you were on TV and then you get your own sitcom and boom, there you go. But it was on Yom Kippur and I thought, oh, my grandmother's not going to be able to watch. And for me, it was also like, it'd be hard.
It was before Peacock.
It was before everything, in fact. So I told him basically, this was the first time that I made a decision based on being Jewish. Everything else, my decisions based on being Jewish were like, I assume I took off school on Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, and I had, matzah and Passover, but there was not a ton of restrictions to being Jewish when I was, other than
And there
those
wasn't much at
imposed.
stake, to miss school on Yom Kippur, but this is something clearly you wanted to be a part of, to be on this.
Yeah, and it was night, and it was not like I wasn't missing work for it, and it was just like, yeah. So it was, and then I said, "This is the first." I thought my grandmother's not gonna be able to watch it. This is before. It wasn't before VCRs, but like, her remote control was a wire connected to the TV, so I don't think she had the technology to record something. And I thought, like, I won't be able to drink anything because I fasted always since I was like 10 years old. I fasted. And except for 1 year where we're feeding raisin toast our minhag, our tradition was to go and feed raisin toast to geese. I guess it was some sort of tashlich thing where you do that, but we fed raisin toast to geese. I imagine that wasn't great for geese. I imagine that's why the field where the geese were was destroyed after that. I'm just thinking, I'm putting this together now. I apologize on behalf of all the geese and all the people who live in Massapequa Park who had to deal with a Takapusha Park that was covered with runny geese feces. I apologize for that. But I remember eating a piece of bread instinctively when I was like maybe 11 years old and pulling it in my mouth. I was so disgusted that I did that. I still remember that. And so I had that, I always had this, my Jewish soul always, wanted to do what was right.
Thing.
Yeah, wanted to do what was right. So I thought like, I already ate a piece of raisin toast, 11 years before that. And I wasn't going to make that mistake again. So I was not going to appear on Yom Kippur. And they said, it was like on a Wednesday. They said, okay, so we'll do it the following Friday. I had no problem with Friday. I didn't know what Friday was. And then, And then it was bought by... Ha was bought by Comedy Central, and they had their designs on something called South Park, which was, I don't even know if what even became of that, but I do not recall the famous Funniest Man on Wall Street series going forward on them. So that happened, and I was like, wow, I did something like for being Jewish, and that was the payback for it, but it was like, all right, that's a bummer. I don't understand how this works. Maybe I don't understand the infinite wisdom of God, that He would, if you stand up for religion.
Did you actually graduate and get your undergrad in business?
I got I was, after graduating, I went to Canton, Ohio, and I lived in Canton, Ohio for 6 months. I was part of the General Electric Management Development Program. It was after the stock market crash of '87, so there weren't a lot of jobs. There were 10 guys in the house I lived with. I was the only one to get a job, in fact. They're all, all the other guys are very successful. now, but it was a very terrible market, and I got a job, and I was the funniest guy in Canton, Ohio, for sure. But I always had like kind of a little bit of a kind of a wise ass, I guess, would be a good name for it. To probably a better word for it. But I always been like kind of a wise guy, a little bit, iconoclastic, and so I didn't really fit in that environment. I eventually moved back to New York, which is where I'm from, and then I worked at this little French boutique investment bank, and we had to put together these packages to sell companies. And I remember once I put in just this joke run about this business, and I accidentally sent it to the business, and I had to get in touch with the assistant there and beg them. I said, I put in this page of jokes. Can you please take this out? This will be very bad for me. And then it was little signs like that that said I was not meant for this world.
So, I mean, the 10 people that are listening, maybe hopefully there's 12 that are listening.
By now there's hundreds. This is going viral, guys.
This is going viral. And I think that there are people who are locked in to something specific that they're doing in life, and they say, this is who I am. I went through 4 years worth of school. I've invested all this time and all this effort, but I'm miserable. And it sounds to me like, not that you were that guy who was miserable, but you said to yourself, like, am I going to live the rest of my life as in a career that I'm not so happy to do? And just say, like, I'm going to now, grab my pants and basically say, you know what, I'm going to do something that I enjoy. I'm going to do something I love. And what would you say to those people who?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what happened. Like, so, yes, I was not very good at it. I didn't see a tremendous upside for me. I went to investment banking because I wanted to make money, and I thought, okay, that's where money is. I went to the best undergraduate business school you could go to, so that was the path to do that. I did very well in school, and graduated number 2 in my class to Mark Caparasso by like 0.2 points. And I feel like everybody was happy that I was not number 1, although I did make a speech. And my wife listens to the speech, and I have such a strong New York accent. It's almost it's really like Billy Joel giving my graduation speech.
It's 9 o'clock on a Sunday.
Yes, and there's a good impression of Shulam Lemmer.
Yes.
The 3 of your fans will love that. Oh, we just lost. I look at viewership just dropped precipitously. Stay tuned, guys. It's going to get better right now. So I decided that I was going to leave the business. I remember telling my dad that I had a writing partner at the time who was my best friend from college, and he was in advertising, and it was going to be easy for him because he was going to be able to become, do freelance advertising out here. And his parents were super supportive. Mine was not. My dad was not, just because, again, it was you can see this as part of the kind of the full kind of spectrum of him being afraid that I would not be able to support myself. You want your kids to support themselves, and this would show itself later when I decided to become religious, and also at this point it was like I'm quitting a job. It didn't pay me a ton of money, but it was it was finance. I worked in Rockefeller Center, and it was security. I wore a suit, and then I quit my job, and I remember telling him that I was leaving my job, and he did not react great. And my friend said, what are you going to do when you get back? What are you going to do? Are you going to go back into finance? Are you going to be able to get a job? And I said, I'm not coming back. And everybody, and it really was like I guess I was 25, maybe 24, 25. And I had, it was a bulletproof confidence, but it wasn't based on anything. It was just based on, I don't know, just being
a little bit of ego and a little bit of stupidity and a little bit of
just like it was just I was just young, and it was just like I don't know, I didn't imagine thank God I'd gotten everything I wanted to get always. Not that I had an easy life, I came up, my parents were divorced, and there was a rocky times when I was a kid, and like I said, I got bullied a lot, picked on a lot, and I didn't but it wasn't like, oh, this kid's got it made. Of course, he's got everything, and he's got a golden ticket. It was, I would move to California, and why not? I wanted to be an investment banker. I wanted to go to Penn. I got to Penn. I wanted to be an investment banker. became an investment banker. Now I want to be a writer. I'm going to be a writer. And so that translated almost immediately into me delivering sandwiches in LA. And when I got here, I had $1,500 in my wallet, in my Velcro wallet, and I spent it all just about the first day because I had to do first month's, last month's. I bought a car for $100, worst investment I ever made. That $100 car wound up costing me $3,600 over time, and I did not have $3,600. And I went from being, getting to say you're on Wall Street. I live on Wall Street. I live in the Upper West Side, an apartment. The whole apartment was much smaller than the studio. I lived in called it the pizza box. I lived in a loft, but the bed was this far from the ceiling. So I'd wake up every morning with a concussion, go back to sleep. That's like my snooze button. But it was like living a dream, like young and full of vim and vigor and hair. And it was just like, it was crazy and confidence. And, it's people who, tell me they want to do this job now. I just tell them that it has to be the only thing that you can do because it's a brutal job. And it has to drive you in a way. When everyone says, I was like, what do you want to do? It's like, I want to be a writer, or I said, do the or. I want to be an actor, or do the or. Because the or is always going to be easier than anything in this.
So was it an easier job market then?
Well, for delivering sandwiches, like I said, I delivered sandwiches. This is a good story. Everything I did, I had to be the best at. When I delivered sandwiches, I worked for Rainbow Kitchen, which I'm sure it had to be discontinued. The health department they were always one step ahead of the health department. We were delivering food out of the back of, like, it might have been this room, even in coolers with no refrigeration, no safety certificates. And I was number 4 cooler, and it was very important for me that I got deliverer of the week every week. And they retired my number 4 route afterwards because I did so well. It's important. Kids, be the best at whatever you do.
Standing in the Hall of Fame.
And I was the Sandy Koufax of food deliverers. I gave more people botulism than probably any other person you know. You're welcome, along with the geese. Terrible things happened. I've been responsible for a lot of intestinal damage across species. So, and I worked for Talent Tree Temp Agency, and I was Talent Tree Temp of the Month because that was important to me. And I also had a suit, and a lot of people didn't have suits. But what I also had was I had a car with no brakes, and terrible car. 79 Volkswagen Rabbit diesel, terrible. And we had torrential rains, much like the ones that we're having now, which is really good. And I remember the woman called me and said, someone asked me for my best temp tomorrow. And she said, I naturally gave them you. I'm like, amazing. And I said, like, it can't be data entry though, because data entry only paid like $8 an hour. It was like data entry was $8 an hour. Something else was like 10 and something was $12 an hour. That's before there was this minimum wage nonsense. And I said, like, I will lose money. If it's the $8 an hour one, I'll lose money because it will cost me, just in dry cleaning, because my car leaked diesel. It's going to be like $6 to clean my suit. Plus, it was $20 to park. And after tax and lunch, I would lose like $12. And plus, there was going to be torrential rains. And I didn't have brakes. I had a handbrake. And she said, I can get you 10 an hour, but it comes out of my thing. I go, I can't do it, Lauren. I can't do it. And she said, I promise them the best. They will get the best. And if you don't do this, you will never temp in this town again. And I was like, oh my gosh, I can't not temp in LA again. So I remember getting in my car and we were going down the 101, which was a river, and I'm just using my handbrake like a rudder. And my car is just swerving, stepping out. I think I lost $6, but I maintained my status as Talent Tree Temp of the Month. So I believe that hard work, and I know we're getting off of my religious journey here, but I believe that you should always be the best that you can be. And I tell my kids that whatever it is, I really, your money comes from God. It does. It's going to be determined what you're going to get. You have to put in your work, but like you always want like that kind of, and I don't want to say poverty because there are people who don't know where the next meal is coming from. And thankfully, my dad eventually gave me money to put a down payment on a Nissan Sentra that had brakes. and a knob that made the air go from inside the car to outside the car, which was one of the selling points as they sold it to me. But so I was never poor, but I knew what it meant to work for money. And then
So you went from being the best delivery guy, the best temp guy.
Yes.
And when did that big? If you
So
want to
then
say that
I
big,
get-
that next break.
the next
Now,
break
I
was
want to say like your Yosef moment. Being
So,
you know, when you were handed
when I'm
over
called
the
out. Yeah, so I'm called out, and it happened in
they
incident.
calls you out from the prison,
it-
and then they basically.
so I was
said,
delivering- I
"Here's
was-
interpret the dreams."
Yes, so I was in.
It's like
I'm-
around this Torah portion of time.
So I am. This is the redemption story. This happened to me that I went into my exile into Hollywood right around this time, and I'm skipping some really great stories. You'll have to come back, or I'll have to come back, or you'll have to see the extended version of this.
Yeah, this might have to be more than 45 minutes.
This is not. We're not even getting to anything Jewish yet.
Yes.
And so I got into something with my partner called the Warner Brothers Writers Development Program, which has now ceased to exist. It transitioned, and I'm using this term not coincidentally, into like a diversity program, and then I think it's just gone now. But back then, I was in this Writers Development Program, and where you met 10 weeks, and they put you in a room with other people, and different showrunners came in and spoke. I've since spoken to these groups too, which is very, very fun. But they put you into these, and it's supposed to mimic a writer's room, and it's supposed to train you. And it was a good thing. And if you got a job, they gave you got 75% of what you would normally make, but you were free to the studio, to the network, or to the show. So it became whatever. But I thought, like, do I really want to make 75%? And I split that with a partner. And then my agent was like, you're delivering sandwiches now. Like, you're making zero. So we decided to do this anyway. We got into this program. And then there were these two guys who ran the show Full House. And I was like, and they were up there. And I was such a wise guy. And I was just like, just making fun of them the whole time. I smelled like egg salad. I had to buy my own food. My trunk got broken into. I lost all my fanny pack full of change. Like, this again cost me money. And afterwards they go like, why are you such a wise guy? They used a different word. I go, I don't know, it's my personality. And they said, listen, we're working on a pilot now called Hang With Mr. Cooper. You want to come in and punch it up? And I was like, well, yeah, work in a writer's room, of course. And it cost me
no experience.
No experience, except I was a jerk. Okay. I was funny. And I came from New York, and these guys came from New York.
Some interpret dreams, and you're just being a jerk. And this is what happens.
Well, but they both come from God, and it is a good... Now, my Hebrew name is Yosef Shimon, by the way. The two people called Tzaddik in all of Torah. But yes, this was like... I had a very good skill for this, for joke telling. I was not refined as a human being. And I did not have I didn't know how to kind of modulate it. And that self-control would come literally decades later. So I came for the first day in the writer's room, and they handed out the script to everybody. And everyone is this guy who created this guy, Jeff Franklin. He created Full House, and everyone was looking at the script, and they're like, you've done it again, Mr. Franklin, a home run, surefire hit, no notes. And they came to me. I was like, I don't get it. And they're like, who are you? I was like, and they're like, oh, he was in the writer's development program. It's like, the guy smells like egg salad, what? With the big, like, pompadour? Like, what don't you get? I said, like, I don't know. The characters all sound the same to me, and it's not particularly funny. And
Did you ever, sorry, you made me just think, remember the movie Big?
Yes.
You remember Big with Tom Hanks?
Yes.
And he's like the kid
Yes.
who's now Tom Hanks' body. He
Yes.
walks into the toy company
Yes.
and says like, I don't get it.
Yes. And
This is exactly the scene.
so, yes, and it was. So he was this guy who had amassed a tremendous fortune, said, really, so what would you do differently? And then I just pitched a bunch of jokes, and I wound up pitching, I got, I think, 9 jokes in, and including the act break moment, and just like this. And so I got a call that night from the guys who, Rinsler and Warren, great guys, and they called me up and they said, like, we got to talk about today. And I said, yeah. They said, I'm going to give you some advice now that you keep this for the rest of your life. If someone's been working on a show for 6 months, you don't come in and tell them that it's not funny and there are no characters. And I said, did you think it was funny or there are characters? He goes, of course not. But that's not your job. Like, you don't have that status to say that. You can't do that. And I
We
said,
called that chutzpah.
yes. And I said, so am I fired? They said, no, you got in 9 incredible jokes into the show. You're not fired, but just like you got to
Tone it down.
yeah, you got to watch what you say. And it wound up being great. And then I remember a couple of weeks later, I got a check for like, I was there for like 2 weeks and I got a check for like $2,000. And I was like, you accidentally sent me money for this. Like, no, you got paid. Back then, they don't pay anymore for that. It's like $2,500. I go, wait, I got paid for that? And that was my first thing. I was like, oh my gosh, I would have done it for free just to be in the room. Now, by the way, most writers today and most of the people watching this, you're the worst generation in history. You don't have that appreciation. But if you have the opportunity to do something and you get paid in skill and exposure, take that opportunity because it's more valuable than money. So that, thank God, I from that moment on, for the next 29 years in a row, I did not stop working up until last year. But
I saw you every day.
yes, so it was an incredible, maybe unrivaled run of not working. And
So you went from hanging with Mr. Cooper, and then
I did hang with.
you did a big. Shortly thereafter, you had a pretty
Right, I
show.
did Hang with Mr. Cooper, and then Hang with Mr. Cooper was a difficult show. There were problems with the guys who ran it. There was also problems with the guy who starred in it. Had kind of like, I was saying, machlokas, kind of like didn't kind of see.
Strife.
Yeah, he was this kid from Oakland, and the people writing it were a bunch of like 10 dirty Jewish guys, and there was like, so there's a little discrepancy on the tone of the show.
You were on a show with a bunch of amigos or compadres. We'll call it that. And that was code. But how did you get on to a show with a bunch of amigos?
I was not. It wasn't amigos. It was just a bunch of like young cocky white guys writing for this guy who was an all black cast, and that was like.
No, I didn't do that well.
You didn't do that well. We'll fix that in post.
I was trying to speak in code. You got onto a show called Friends.
Oh, after that. So after that, yeah. So I left Hanging with Mr.
I wanted
Cooper.
to see, how did you get onto a show?
I left Hanging with Mr. Cooper, and then I went to another show called Duckman, which I loved, and then Duckman was in. They were waiting for it to get picked up, and then there was like, I wanted, I had to keep working, so then there was 2 shows. I always tell the story. There was one show called Blue Skies, or about 2 guys and a girl who opened up a travel agent, and then this show about 6 friends who were starred the girlfriend of somebody on Family Matters and Family Ties, named Courtney Cox. And I was like, okay, I got 2 choices here, and one of these shows is going to be such a hit. And I was like, God, you remember how you didn't give me remember the Yom Kippur, what I gave up? I really, really want to get on Blue Skies. I know there's going to be a hit. And then God, in his infinite wisdom, did not put me on Blue Skies, and I got on Friends, and then that changed the trajectory of everything.
And you became one of the 10 writers in the room.
Yeah, I think at that time they were like maybe 12 or 13, but I was certainly
From the inception.
from the very first day of Friends, after the pilot was picked up, back when it was, I don't even know if it was called Friends yet, or These Friends of Mine. I think it was called Friends, but the theme was Shiny Happy People by REM, and yes, I was there from the very early days. I came up with the one with as a title thing. I was talking to the showrunner. I was like, it should be like, let's have a catchy title, like, because they were like, Seinfeld did the something. That's the name of every episode. I was like, we should be like the one with, and then whatever happens in the episode, and that kind of caught on. And so I was there right at the very beginning, and that was, you don't also realize that you're in a life-changing moment.
That was my question. Is it at what point did you know I'm in a life-changing moment, or this is the show, or that would rewrite history? That Seinfeld, Cheers, whatever. At what point did you say, I've struck gold?
Well, not until I left did I realize. Unfortunately, hindsight is 20/20. You also don't know oftentimes what you had till it's gone.
Don't always seem to go.
Exactly. And I did meet, by the way, even though it's Joni Mitchell, the version you were singing, Counting Crows.
Yes.
And I did hang out with Adam Derwitz of the Counting Crows.
Who was Jewish?
Who was there the night. He's coming in next after me, but looks like I'm using his time. Sorry, next week, time permitting. I was there at the Viper Room the night he met Jennifer Aniston.
Oh, River Phoenix was there too?
River Phoenix had just been turned into a chalk outline in front of the Viper Room, but we were there for a private party. I didn't realize what I had. I just thought, I think a lot of times, like when you're living in something, you just assume this is how life is.
So you were there for how many seasons?
I was there for the first 2 seasons, but we worked crazy hours. We worked like some hours, 26 hours a day. I used to say, like, I used to leave and then see myself coming back the next day. I was like breaking the space-time continuum. And like when you listen to Howard Stern live on the way back, it's like such a bummer. And then, it was, and I thought I could do this. We could do this. And we took a job at DreamWorks because Steven Spielberg wanted to meet with us. And again, for my grandmother, it was like, I'm not going to not work with Steven Spielberg, and went to DreamWorks. And then I met my wife, and
so you were off the show at this point?
No, I was, my partner and I were kind of like people knew us as like the kind of the guys to watch
So
on
you
the
were
show.
the Kobe and Shaq, Lahavdil.
Yes.
Again, of the writers' room.
Yes, except we were young. We were 17.
And you were
Kobe.
saying like, we're too good for this show. So we're
No, I never said no. God forbid. I never said we're too good for the show. We got an offer.
You saw other opportunity.
Well, we after our Jeffrey Katzenberg, who would go on to create, DreamWorks with Steven Spielberg and David Geffen. They started DreamWorks with Gary David Goldberg, who created Spin City, and Judd Apatow, this young kid. And he had seen an episode called the one with all the poker, which my partner and I wrote, and he was like, I want these guys. And my agent, he called from a plane, and my agent hung up on him saying, this is not really Jeffrey Katzenberg, so he's not my agent anymore. But they wanted to take us right away after 1 year, and we thought 1 year is stupid to leave a show. And then after the second year, he came back and said, we really want to like build this studio around you. Why don't you come meet Steven? So we met Steven, and then they made us an offer, and then we went back to friends at Warner Brothers and said, this is an offer we got from DreamWorks. Can you match it or beat it? And they said, no, you can go. And they called our bluff, so we left. And years later, I had lunch with the guy who was the new president of Warner Brothers. Said, a lot of writers owe you a lot of money. I go, explain. And he said, no one before you and your partner left Friends, no one ever thought anyone would leave a hit show. So we always underpaid writers. After that, for all the writers of Friends and ERs, we gave them $1 million a year salaries. I was like, thank you, Tony. That's amazing news. That really makes me feel even better about my decision. But whatever, I'm where I am.
You don't
now.
look back with any regrets.
I look back every day, but I always use this joke. They say you can't put a price on your marriage, but mine is probably about $18 million. That's what my marriage is. But by the way, worth mostly every penny of it. No, it's like where I am. I met my wife, I had my kids. I became
you know what?
observant.
I'm going to do something right now that we've never done before, Greg.
Erase it all.
No, we're going to stop it right here.